The following is an important and powerful story of female-to-male transitioner who is experiencing traumatic flashbacks to sex change surgery they now deeply regret. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Here's my pride story for this month, from transitioning to having all surgeries, 10 years later. Today I woke up with immense gratitude. I am sitting on our porch amongst the pine trees, enveloped in sounds of birds and the mountain sun, the rustling of trees while drinking coffee. There are no sounds from humankind as our little water feature is trickling in the background. There was a point in my surgical recoveries where I would practice mindfulness that encompassed envisioning a future in a forest that would calm my nerves. Here I am. Granted, during the fog and wintertime, it is the absolute opposite of that. But it was that mindfulness practice that helped me block out the beeping sounds of my blood transfusions or the fourth, fifth, eighth dose of morphine and the cackling of nurses outside of my room. I was thinking about how when I was recovering from my big surgery, phalloplasty, back in September 2015, I thought I wasn't going to make it out. How awful it was. If Stephen King and M. Night Shyamalan could make a movie out of the weird things I experienced to aid my surgical recovery, they probably still would not be able to depict it all. From laying in pools of my own blood, from awakening to cold, slithery feeling of leeches crawling on me after they unlatched from the surgical area, the sight of necrotic tissue, learning to walk again from leg atrophy, well, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, to be honest. I laid in deep regret week after week for choosing a surgery that ended up causing more irrecoverable harm and damage to my mind-body confidence. I am the first to say that the surgery was definitely something I immensely regret, and I would never willingly choose to get it now. But this is something taboo to say, and stories like mine are dishearteningly weaponized on all sides, when it is just that, my story, my experience, although many experience great joy. Now, 6 years later, intense weekly, and sometimes twice weekly, therapy later, I have come to the realization within the last year and a half that I was trying to fit an image and embody who I thought I was supposed to be. I molded my body and had it cut into with the hope that it would bring me some solace, some joy, some elation, and so that I would no longer feel like an outsider. I wanted to feel connected to my body, and I thought that by taking these steps, it would help me. It did help me, but it helped me come back to myself. What I realize now, if I had to go back, like way, way, way back, 10 years ago, the needle full of what I thought was what I needed would probably never enter my skin. What I realize now is that I was perfect and wonderful the way I was, and I did not need to alter nor change my outer appearance surgically. I will say top surgery was amazing for me, so there's that. I realize now that there are so many ways of being and existing in this world, and that we do not have to answer to anyone, nor do we have to fit some idealistic version of what it is to be a man or woman, or simply a person. For me, I have spent the last decade exploring my identity and body, only to come out on the other side realizing that I was already magnificent, that my outer appearance, as well as the perception of it, does not compare to the wondrous beauty that is my soul and my essence. It took me 10 long years of pain, loss, finding some happiness along the way, to realize all of this. I realize now that I am one of those people who exists in the in-between, but for me, labels are not necessary. For me, originally having the need for labels lead me down an insatiable path away from being able to actually explore myself. Labels lead me far away from being okay with existing in this beautiful body that I was, and am so lucky to have. What does this mean? It means whatever it means. I am grateful that I can now sit in this feeling of not trying to fit some mold or shift the way I move throughout this world. I am grateful for and in awe of those who simply move throughout the world as they are, whatever they are, whoever they are, unapologetically. That's my next chapter. Happy Pride.
The following is another post made by this same person, in which they are contemplating detransition.
Hi all. It has been a while since I've posted. I received a few messages checking up on me, thanks for that. For those of you who don't know my history, I was born female, been on testosterone for 9 years, had a hysterectomy, top surgery, and phalloplasty. Honestly, it wasn't really until phalloplasty and all of the complications that kind of woke me up. I've questioned why I put my body through all of this pain. With that all said, I'm still in this weird limbo. This has been a couple of years going back and forth. I've continued taking tea, continued identifying as male. I've been trying to simply embrace my body and who I am now. I've been trying to practice radical self-love. But I feel like now I am a facade. I'm simply presenting as male. How can I, or even the community, preach to practice radical self-love when we are changing our bodies so drastically and then claiming it's because we love ourselves? Just a thought I have had. While I'm also obviously regretting bottom surgery, I'm also deeply regretting my inability to have children. So very much. I'm really worried about the idea of starting estrogen, and I am hoping that those of you who have had hysterectomies can chat with me about starting on estrogen. The thing is, I hate having to be on any medication forever, but I need to be on something. I am so scared of the implications of T long term. But, correct me if I am wrong, is it safer to go back on estrogen, albeit synthetic, because that is what my body naturally thrives on and needs? Have you felt the difference in how your body responds once you go back to your natal, and even synthetically natal hormones? I feel like I've just been sick, depressed, hollow since I've started. I'm so curious how it may feel, but I'm also mindful that it'll never be like before. To be honest, I can't even remember. Last, I keep wondering if I should even detransition. 1. I feel like I'm so far and too far in. 2. I am genuinely scared of my body starting to take on more of a female shape. 3. Navigating the world again as a queer woman both scares me and also makes me feel liberated, like I beat the pressures that were beaten into me by society, by the community, that being male or being trans was actually a good thing. 4. I've realized since transitioning that I'm attracted to men. The thing is, I'm uncomfortable being with men as a female, but comfortable in being with them as two gay men. I think that's been the biggest mindfuck I have. I also wonder if it was my attraction to men was another added reason that, in a sense, made me want to be one. I'm in a loving relationship with a woman, and while I won't act on going outside of the relationship, just the idea of this confuses me. Anyway, this is where my head has been at. I recently shaved my head and grew out my beard, was trying to just accept myself. But every time I look in the mirror, I just realize it's not me. My body has felt sick for a long, long time. I'm so curious if my body would thrive much more if I provide it with what it was born to work on. Sorry, my posts are always very free-flowing thoughts. Hopefully you can make sense of them. I also just posted this, but it seems to be gone. Not sure what happened, or maybe what I marked that wasn't in the rules.
Here are some of the responses to the post. The link to the original post will be pinned in the comment section down below.
Thank you for your post. I stopped testosterone after nearly 9 years and started estrogen bit over 4 months ago. The only surgery I had was chest surgery, but because I have osteoporosis, my doctor told me I would need to take estrogen if I stopped testosterone. I was initially very resistant to doing so. I wanted to detransition, and stopping T felt doable. Although I had never had any problems with it, but I didn't want to have to take the girly hormone. I realise that sounds stupid, but it's how I felt. When my doctor suggested it, I wanted to throw up. But given that I didn't want to start breaking bones, I conceded defeat. Well, I contemplated the switch for a month or so before doing it. My doctor told me I could taper off T and onto E if I wanted, but I tend to prefer to just do difficult things quickly, so I just switched. I'm amazed at how easy it's been, no problems at all, and now I'm starting to think it's sort of funny how terrified I was to take estrogen. Given that I am not a doctor, I have no idea whether the cold turkey switch from T to E is okay for everyone or not, so to anyone reading this, please get medical advice. I'm still sorting through all the other issues around detransitioning, but the actual hormone switch has been fine. As someone who is older and was on T for years, it's comforting to see posts from others in a similar boat. The whole COVID stay-at-home thing has added another dimension to all this. In some ways, it may actually be making it a bit easier for me. Although the isolation is hard, I live alone. But I have been pretty involved with gay male community since long before doing medical transition. And most of my social connections are there, so I am unsure where I go to from here. Whilst I know I will retain some friendships, I also think it's likely I will get some shit. And I think I likely won't feel comfortable in some of the places I used to socialise in. I guess I am basically a straight woman, but I think any attempts to live socially as such for the foreseeable future will likely be the makings of a comedy show. I'm not willing to change how I dress, behave, etc. in order to be read as female, and even if I was, doubt it would work. Oh well.
I wish I had more advice to share about switching from testosterone to estrogen, but I haven't gotten to make the actual switch yet due to COVID. I have a few video-based sessions scheduled with a therapist this coming week, and then an appointment with my doc the following. I hope I will be taking my first dose of estrogen after that appointment, and will be regularly sharing the changes to my body here, so that others considering detransition can benefit from that information. I do believe that being on estrogen is better than being on testosterone, as estrogen is your body's natural primary hormone, even if that hormone is being supplemented synthetically. There has also been far more research into estrogen use in women post-hysterectomy, and it is generally regarded as safe. On the flip side, there is little to no research into long-term testosterone use, especially by those of the female sex. With that said, I also want to reassure you that you're not alone. I transitioned nearly 18 years ago. I've been on testosterone that long and have mostly felt like you, sick, depressed, and hollow, had top surgery, a full hysterectomy, and a clitoral release plus testicular implants, which my body rejected, and they had to be removed. I too believe I may have gone too far and for too long. Nonetheless, after all this time, I have still decided to try and detransition. A big part of why is my realization that internalized homophobia and lesbophobia had fueled my desire to transition in the first place. If I'm honest, I also first started having thoughts of detransitioning right around the time I had my lower surgery, which had complications and was done to appease my BF at the time and others, not because I was necessarily dysphoric, but figured I was at the point of no return and should just try and embrace my changed body. No one had detransitioned before, at least I could not find any information about it at that time, so I figured the problem was with me. I was also in stealth mode, passing as a cisgender man, in a very toxic, misogynistic environment. My entire social circle and even my job revolved around gay men in the BDSM community. It fueled my anxiety and fears of being female, and reinforced the idea that being a woman was gross, and thus being a man was better and the right decision. When I eventually came out as being transgender assigned female at birth, I thought I'd be rejected, but instead it invited attention and objectification. The two gay relationships I had with men did not work out for that reason. Ultimately, fetishization and objectification aren't acceptance. I suppose I share that because of your mention of being comfortable with men if it's a gay relationship, but not if it's a straight one. Do you think the power dynamic will be more equal if you're seen as male? Or that you will have shared experiences as gay men? Or that you'll be more accepted as a romantic partner by gay men because of having had a phalloplasty? I caution you that it may not be the case, and you could be romanticizing things a bit. I also think it's worth unpacking why you fear your body returning to a female shape and navigating the world as a queer woman. Where is that fear coming from, and what is the fear actually of? Are you concerned you will not be able to fit the ideal version of a woman anymore due to testosterone and your surgeries? Are you scared that having a female shape will invite attention by straight men again? These are all very valid concerns. I recommend speaking to a therapist about all this if you can. Whether you decide to detransition or not, they can help you navigate your path going forward. I truly wish you all the best.
I am so beyond grateful for your post and for being so honest with me and with us. I made mention in a reply above that while everyone's experience and trauma is valid, it really is an entirely different realm of those of us who are a decade plus in and have had a majority of the surgeries pushed. Not that it is any easier, but in a sense, it is for those who are maybe pre-testosterone or pre-surgeries or only a couple years in. Again, their experience is valid, but it's just a different level than perhaps what you and I have experienced. What I mean is, connecting with others like you gives me hope and makes me feel not so alone. I didn't even think about that there is obviously much more info on female-bodied people taking estrogen versus female-bodied taking testosterone. I mean, it's a no-brainer that it seems much more safe. The truth is, trans hormones and surgeries really are experimental. I too had the light bulb as soon as I got surgery. You know what interesting with both of our stories is that I too didn't have bad lower dysphoria. In fact, I think I loved it, minus penetration. I think I just saw how many people felt so complete and whole after it, that they didn't have to strap it on anymore with their partners. And I too wanted that feeling. I did an extensive amount of research, and turns out my surgeon lied about complications. There's over 10 lawsuits against him, and I was one of them, but ended up dropping the case because it was too hard emotionally. I really never would have gotten it had I known there was actually over 60 to 70% risk versus the 5% he stated. Anyway, it was after and all the other surgeries that really made me wonder why I did it. Your entire experience in the gay male community is so interesting, and thank you for sharing. I too found that I became more of a fetish than anything. It was a very, very weird experience that I only popped in and out of a few times. You lived in that world for a long time. I'm sorry that you felt all of those things. You also really helped to put things into perspective for me. You mentioned, do you think the power dynamic will be more equal if you're seen as male? And that is exactly it. I have always felt so uncomfortable being with men when being seen or read as female. Like I feel scared, they're in control, etc. But being seen as a man seems, like I would be more on the same level, even if. I really felt like I couldn't relate at all because I wasn't socialized as male. So even then, I still felt like I didn't belong. So that's interesting that you pointed it out, that when it comes down to it, it's a power dynamic thing. That actually opened my eyes. As far as fear comes, it's just far scarier navigating the world as a female, let alone a more masculine one, being objectified, etc., not being seen as equal. It's just a different world. Anyway, thank you for your reply. Sorry, mine is long. I'd love to connect more and keep in contact.
I'm in a very similar situation with you. Long-time hormone replacement therapy behind me and operations, except phalloplasty. There are plenty of post-op detrans folks here who have been on HRT for years, and I'm sure they'll find to this post at some point. You can also search for similar titled threads to find their comments and what they've shared by so far. I wish I could tell you about the process of switching to estrogen, but I still haven't got mine changed due to things progressing really slowly. Probably will take another half a year for me to get it changed at this rate, which is stressful as every new testosterone injection has been more upsetting, and I feel like it's getting me further and further away from me. And my changes of trying to reverse at least something. I'm also really hoping that the body is able to adjust into synthetic estrogen like it was the same what my body originally produced. Though, of course, I used to have naturally a testosterone in my system as well. I wonder what happens when it's just purely estrogen. But one thing I can tell you, what you'll probably get to hear even more here. It's never too late to detransition, nor is there a certain point what would be too far when it comes to detransitioning. It's not a smooth journey for everyone, and some things will not be the same as they were. But then again, are they for anyone? We all change with time, whether it's mental or physical changes from something you had a control over or maybe not. Some are big changes, some are small. I try to think all of this being a crucial part of discovering who I am. I feel like very often we humans have to go to the both extreme ends to find what's for us, to see what we truly value, where are our limits, etc. Try be gentle to yourself. You deserve it.
Thank you so very much for taking the time to respond to me. I see a lot of posts in here about those who are or were pre-everything or they went on T for a very, very short time. What I mean to say is, while everyone's experience is valid, it is nice to connect with those who have very long-term effects of hormones or surgery, etc. Not to invalidate anyone, as it's different for everyone, but I do feel like it's a whole another ballgame when you've been in it for almost or more than a decade and have had a ton of surgeries. I'm sorry you haven't yet had the access to switching over. I just heard back from my doctor. I've had many discussions with her. Currently, I'm lowering my dose of testosterone. I am to cut in half and then lower every week. I just actually started on an estrogen patch, which is literally just enough to help with bone and heart health and doesn't really promote any changes. This will also help with not experiencing menopause-like stuff, etc. I have had the prescription in my medicine cabinet for 9 months. Finally, after I posted this, I think it was the next day that I told myself to let go. I have felt waves of relief since. This is such an interesting journey, isn't it? What is interesting is that I transitioned to male because I believed it was a form of self-love. I was running away from my body, the perception of others and of self. I had a talk with my therapist about moving forward, and I explained how I felt like now getting things like electrolysis or kind of reversing phalloplasty, which isn't possible, but may get something like a modified male-to-female person, that it could be contradicting myself, trying to practice self-love and acceptance by doing more body mods. She explained that while there's no reason to do anything at all, there's no one way to be female. Could I perhaps see this as a form of self-love, of forgiving myself when I was young, and recognizing that back then, I did the best I could? Just some random thoughts. I'd love to keep in contact with you if you would like and be pen pals.
I do believe estrogen is safer than T. T is a very powerful hormone, and it stays in people for a little while even after the person stops taking T. The simple fact that you're questioning your transition years later tells me that you should detransition. Did that sentence make sense? I think you should stop taking T, and I think you should go on estrogen. You could always adopt if you wanted. You have a few options of how to be a parent mother. You could also become a foster parent if you wanted, instead of adopting. You have options other than giving birth. You could really help a young person that needs help. Also, you don't need to apologize for the format of your post.
I've read that sometimes for women who transition because they start seeing their female body negatively, they start seeing other female bodies negatively too, leading them to become less same-sex attracted. If you're already in a relationship with a woman and you're fine with being a gay man but not being a female attracted to a male, it sounds like you might just be fetishizing, idealizing gay male relationships.
Just a reminder, this video simply voices over the Reddit post and some of the responses and is not meant to be used as medical advice. If you believe you have been harmed by medical transition or want to help those who have been harmed, you can check out some links in the description of this channel. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like to raise awareness and to help me out.